ora e te iwi and welcome on into another episode of UFC on Sky. Ko Ravinder Hunia tōku ingoa. Now, my guest today has been touted as one of the busiest MMA coaches in the world right now, and he is right here from New Zealand, Aotearoa. City Kickboxing head coach Eugene Bareman joins us now. Kia ora, Eugene, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Rev. Thanks for the introduction. It's probably a pretty apt introduction at the moment in my life anyway.
You're a humble man, Eugene, always have been. Hey, look, I use the word busiest because it feels like you have been everywhere lately, cornering a whole bunch of fighters, you know, from New Zealand and abroad. You know, talk to us a bit about this journey you've been on.
Yeah, basically every 2 weeks since the start of the year, I've been outside of the country. So let's, if you think about it, like what are we in now? It's been pretty hectic, and it's just, I mean, it's the benefit of the, you know, coming post COVID, like coming out of COVID and coming out of all the countries coming out of their restrictions, and I guess the only thing that kind of hit me was this is kind of how it used to be before COVID, and it's been so long since then. This is quite a rude kind of awakening and reminder to me. It was like, oh yeah, I used to travel a lot when I did this, so it's going back to normal. But it does seem like because we've just come out of the restrictions, like everything is moving like super fast right now. Everybody's fighting all over the place, so yeah, definitely a bit of jet lag I'm struggling with at the moment.
I can imagine. Every 2 weeks, that's a lot. And we're not just talking about you travelling over to Australia either. We're talking about you going to the other side of the planet. So
yeah.
How have you found it all?
London, America. Oh, I don't like it, if I be honest. That's me being polite. I just don't like traveling. I don't like being in a plane, and I really enjoy the part when I get there. You know, the fight weeks and cornering the fights, like that. That's something that I live for. But the whole journey there is really all the traveling is difficult. I could be so much more productive if I could spend more time at home. But this is just the world we live in at the moment. We got to get ourselves to this level, and the fighters fighting internationally, and this is where we strive to be. So you can't complain now.
This is what you fought so hard for all these years, and now you're finally here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look, we talk, you know, often about fighters, especially those out of New Zealand and Australia, having to travel to these UFC cards, you know, anywhere and everywhere. But we don't really take stock on, you know, the coaches and the support groups that also have to do these travels, you know, kind of with them. So how have you found, when you talk about a 2-week rotation, you're also talking about a different fighter, a different strategy, a different personality. So, you know, how have you kind of been, you know, dividing your time in such a way that benefits everybody?
Very difficultly, but the key to the key to it is that realistically, I can't do it by myself. So the key to it is having a great team, and that's something that at CKB that we've developed and we've always had. So I have some very good people that come and stand in and help me with the game planning and the strategies and all the different approaches we take to all the different athletes, because each one obviously has a very individual approach. So other people take up the slack when I have to be away, and vice versa. When other coaches are away, then I take up the slack there, and it's just developing a system around that. Like we've done that over many years, so it works. It's been refined, and it works pretty well at the moment.
We see your fighters, Eugene, you know, world champions now. Kai Kara France hopefully got a title coming up in the next few months, hopefully. But what have you taken away from it as a coach? Because we see fighters evolving and growing and doing these great things, but do you sit back and take stock and go, wow, you know, like this is where I was and this is where I am now as a coach?
Yes, but more, I don't like sit back and smell the roses and I'm like, oh wow, look at what I've achieved. Like I, I look back at and try to take every fight camp that I have, like whether it's with Kaikara or Israel or Carlos, or you look at that 8 to 12 weeks, and you look at that last week, that fight week, and you kind of analyze it, and you figure out like how could we improve it? How could we do better? And you always pick up mistakes. Like for some reason, you pick up all the bad things before you pick up all the good things, and then that's the kind of mindset I have when I look back at like a fight camp or a fight week. It's more like I was trying to be more analytical. How can we improve it? Did we have the right people in the camp? Was there the right mix of energy during fight week, or was there someone there that was a little bit that didn't really mix with the team that we tried to put in there that wasn't the right person to be there at that time? And then, of course, you look at all the other technical things like the programming, and then what we tried to get across in the strategy, and whether we had enough time to do that, or whether we were off on some things that the fighter was just never going to get in that 8 weeks, so we probably shouldn't have gone down that road. And that's kind of like when I think back and look at fights and fight camps and travel and all of that, that's where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Are there any models that you look to? Like, I know that, sporting organisations here in New Zealand have actually looked to City Kickboxing in many ways in terms of, that psychology type approach and things like that. But who do you look to? Or are you just, the master of creating all these awesome ideas?
Nah, I definitely, just, you can't, it's very hard to get any specificity because our sport's so unique, but I definitely have a look at, I watch the All Blacks and the way that they approach things, and the way that they approach their coaching and management. Chicago Bulls back in the heyday. I've done a lot of reading on Phil Jackson and how he approached Chicago Bulls. The Blues, I've had a bit of an inside look at the Blues, and I like to see how they approach, the inner workings of their team environment and their camp. So I definitely I try to pull what I can that's relevant from other great teams for sure.
Yeah.
Canterbury Crusaders is another, in terms of when I think of longevity, like being champions for a long amount, a very long amount of time, trying to stay on top. They're an obvious example to look at, how they approach the sport.
Have you ever reached out to any of those people?
I have a pretty close relationship with Tana Umanga, so me and him talk a little bit, and I have been inside the All Blacks camp a little bit. But I'm a pretty shy person, to be honest. I don't really, to my detriment sometimes, I probably should reach out, but it's not because I don't want to, or it's just because I'm a little bit shy, so I probably prefer to just look at it from the outside.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, look, you used that word longevity. City Kickboxing, you and Doug Viney started this, what's becoming a little empire in 2007. So that's 15 years this year. I know you say, it's important to not sit back and smell the roses and things, but, there's been a whole evolution with City Kickboxing over those 15 years. Is that something you think about?
Yeah, definitely. I think to understand how to move yourself forward, you've got to understand where you're coming from, and you've got to look back at the lessons that you've learned. I think that's very important for you to progress to where you want to go in the future. And there's so many lessons there that will help keep us at the pinnacle of the sport, like at the top end of the sport, which I think, we've been at that top end for quite a few years now. So we're doing okay at it, but it is what I've found in the last few years is it's much more difficult than getting there, which is like a pretty cliche saying. You hear a lot of athletes and teams say that, and you don't truly understand what it means till you're there. But it's a really tough slog to get to the top, but it's a way tougher slog to stay there. So we're going through those lessons right now, and I think that we're doing not the best job, but we're doing enough to keep us ahead, and it's just staying on the grind, staying ahead.
That's right. There's just so much to it, isn't there? And the times that I've been able to talk to you and interview you over the years, there was one interesting philosophy that you did have, and that was, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, you said to me that you won't train anyone if they're not your friend or you don't get along with them, you know? So there's those philosophies that have been ingrained into the, you know, City Kickboxing makeup, isn't there? Is that something you still stand by?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the reason, you know, that's a very big reason why there's been so much success here, is because we've made a choice to involve ourselves with particular type of people and characters, and that's not everybody's approach, like you know, like, but that's the way that we've found success, and that's the way that we're comfortable, and that's what, like, and that's what we're going to stick to. So we're a small, relatively close knit team. And we started that way because we were geographically isolated. And then when we had the opportunity to expand and have many people from all over the world come here, we sat down as a group and we decided that we wouldn't do that. We decided we would stay tight and close knit and keep it very closed. And that's the way it will probably remain. I can't see that changing.
I often bring up bringing a card back to New Zealand because I feel like, you know, New Zealand as a country, your gym in particular, has made such inroads in terms of the exposure to not only the UFC but mixed martial arts here in Aotearoa. And you know, you worry that, you know, you don't want to take a backward step in terms of that public buy-in, the interest, the fans. I mean, the diehards, you cannot deny, they're not going anywhere. But in terms of, you know, we talk a lot about normalising the sport in New Zealand. Do you think it can, you know, it may pose a risk at all if it's not active here in this side of the world?
No, absolutely. I think that, and it's key. The event and the whole circus that is the UFC, which is one of the biggest PR machines in the world, you know, bringing that to an area, to a local area, to a country is like that. That's key to getting people on board that aren't MMA fans. You know, it's just like a circus, right? You bring the circus into town and you put the big top up, and everybody around the town's like, man, what is that? What's going on? What's happening around town? And they start to get inquisitive and look into it, and then the sport grows. Obviously, the people that are into the sport are already into the sport, but that's what bringing the big show does, you know, into a country like this. It helps. It helps expand the amount of eyes that are looking at it, and it gets new fans. And so it's key. It's key to expanding the sport in regions like New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah. I hope you're listening, UFC. Bring it back to town, please. We can't wait for that announcement. It's going to be a big day when the UFC comes back to town, that's for sure. Eugene, I mentioned at the top of this show that we saw you at UFC Fight Night in Las Vegas over the weekend. No New Zealand fighters on that card, but you were there for Australian light heavyweight Tyson Pedro. So talk to us about that relationship and you now guiding Tyson in the UFC.
Yeah, I did corner Tyson, and it was a pleasure to corner Tyson. It was a very enjoyable weekend. That relationship came about because another student of mine, who's also doubles as a very good coach, Selby Devereaux, trained Tyson a number of fights ago before he was injured. And Tyson, I believe Tyson really enjoyed what he was learning and saw the benefit of what Selby was teaching. And obviously Selby has his own kind of take, but fundamentally it's kind of a CKB kind of approach. And I believe that's where the seed first kind of got planted in Tyson's head. Then eventually I think Tyson kind of made his way down here. And his first camp here, actually, I wasn't in the country. He came for a week. It was after he did the ACL, after he fixed his ACL for a year's rehab. And then Carlos destroyed it again. Just obviously... We give Carlos a bit of stick, but obviously it was an accident. That was his first camp here. Then he went away, and then COVID hit. And then it was very difficult for him to get back in the country. But then New Zealand opened up again, and he came back to do a camp. But then lo and behold, he had to leave again because his wife was delivering a baby. His wife was having their baby. So then he had to leave again, and then also COVID hit. So when he left, it was at the risk of him not being able to get back in because we were stopping foreigners coming into the country. So we knew that was a risk, and then so he left obviously to be with his wife and deliver his baby. And we're like, hey, this is probably only going to last 3 to 4 weeks, and then you'll be able to get back in, and then we'll keep training. But then it didn't last 3 to 4 weeks. It lasted 13 or 14 weeks. It was that big lockdown, the last one we had.
Yeah. And
so he was effectively shut out. And in that time, he kind of we kept in contact, and he kept training, and he actually floated around a number of cities. There was one stage where I got trapped out of New Zealand and I went into Australia for 2 weeks. So we spent 2 weeks together. And we just kind of developed the relationship in the camp all over the place through catching up with each other overseas and just communicating on WhatsApp. And so it was definitely not the most ideal camp. But what do you do in these times? So we did the best we could, and it ended up kind of working out. As you can see by the result, we did enough to make it work in our favour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He came on our show last week before he fought, and he said that after this fight, he'll be moving to CKB full-time to train with you. So, big move for him in his career, especially that fight being his comeback fight against Ike Villanueva. What did you make of Tyson's performance, and what are you hopeful of in the future for him?
There's a few things that he can work on, but overall, I'm going to give that performance like an A minus or an A, because that was a near perfect performance. Everything that I felt like I needed him to do, that we worked on for the camp, and that I communicated to him, I thought he did to perfection. We were like the game plan that we put together with his dad and Glenn Sparv, his other coach. Like, I felt like that was really I felt we got that right, so that helps. So we didn't really have to stray from that and go to plan B and C too much. Our kind of A plan worked, and I thought it was the perfect kind of icing on the cake, so to speak, after the massive amount of adversity that I'll put right up there in terms of what athletes have to deal with, that he's come through. So I was extremely happy with the way that performance was executed.
Yeah, nice one. It'll be exciting to see what he can bring in the future as well. It's really good to see him back. Look, another fighter that I wanted to talk to you about is Kai Kara-France, and this, hopeful title fight that seems to be up in the air. Don't know if Moreno and Figueiredo want to go at it again, for the 4th time, which is, I feel, a little bit ridiculous at this point. But what are your thoughts? Kai's, been working his butt off, getting the results, and, things aren't still quite confirming for him.
Yeah, it's the nature of the sport. When you need to lock things in, that's when it's hardest to lock things in. It's just the way kind of karma works. But I can genuinely just sit here and just say that I don't know which way things are going to go. I think there's kind of I get the resounding feeling out there that people don't want to see a 4th fight between these guys. People are kind of people are done with that fight. The trilogy kind of finished it, but then I hear things like they maybe they are going to fight. It's neither here nor there. It's I haven't heard anything official of where that's at. Someone told me Figueiredo might be injured and he might not be fighting. And then I hear that he is fighting, and that Kai might be. Kai could possibly be on standby. I don't know. I can't really sit here and genuinely tell you which way I'm going to go. But all I know is, look, Kai has worked very diligently over the last few years and put himself in a position where he's clearly the next person to fight for the title. whether it be now or whether it be after Figueiredo and Moreno fought, he's put himself in a position where he's the next title shot, and he's done that. He's just done that through sheer grit and determination, and he's done that because when the matchmakers give you a call, he gets a bit of paper and signs a dotted line.
Yeah.
No funny business. He doesn't avoid he hasn't avoided some of the fights that a lot of the top guys have avoided. And when you do that, you get rewarded, and that's why the matchmakers are rewarding him by giving him the next title shot. So, Kai's done a great job.
Yeah, I agree. He's worked really, really hard, and I just can't wait for him to finally get his moment, what he's worked so hard for. Look, with Izzy, he's another one who wanted to fight. I think he said he wanted to fight 4 times this year. So, well, I'm sitting back actually waiting for another announcement if he's to get, if his wishes to come true in terms of an event. I know he has mentioned that he wants to be a part of International Fight Week over in the US. What is it looking like for a possible, near matchup for him?
That's the goal. That's the goal. I mean, I can't. Nothing in terms of that. It's been locked down, but we're aiming for. We're aiming for as soon as possible, and I think the nearest date that looks likely is July and International Fight Week, hopefully. So there's people got to understand there's so much stuff that goes on behind the scenes. They only see the final product that walks out to the octagon, but the amount of work that goes into this, the amount of back and forthing and the amount of business that has to get worked out for you to actually get to the point where the fans can see the walkout in the fight is like, in all my years of environment, still blows my mind. So that's basically what's going on. It's just all the business side of the sport's going on behind the scenes. So that's why there's nothing been locked down yet.
It must be quite, something to see when you've got these fighters in the gym and they're just ready to go and they're just sitting there waiting, going, okay, when is it? Eugene, have you heard anything?
Yeah, no, 100%, and that's exactly what it's like. And to be fair, the fighters actually probably they don't know a lot of that side of the sport and that side of the business, and it's our job and they shouldn't have to get involved in that side of the sport. We've got a team, and it is the team's job to kind of shelter them from that so they can concentrate on what they need to do and what they're best at. So yeah, definitely you get a lot of the fighters get anxious and they bug you and they want to fight, but also they don't understand it's not as simple as what it used to be. And with me calling up Philip Lamb and just getting a fight on within an hour, it's just not how it works anymore.
No, that's right. Even me sitting here, rattling off, what about this guy? What about this guy? There are so many as well now that you have to, kind of sort out in business terms. A fighter that I feel we haven't seen in a little while is Radel. We did see him in camp, supporting Alex Volkanovski in his featherweight title defence. Yeah. But, is there any, kind of outlook for him for a possible opponent soon?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Again, another guy we're on the cusp of confirming something for, but just the last few things are getting worked out. So, and again, in my gym, we just have a philosophy that you have to just train all year. That we train all year. So my guys want to fight. If you're training all year, then you want to fight all year. But like I said, that's easier said than done. So Brad's, stand by for Brad, stand by for Israel, stand by for Kai and Carlos. But nothing I can lock in yet. But I believe some big announcements on the way.
Cool, exciting. Yeah. It's all you're just dangling that carrot, but it's just the perfect size carrot to dangle in front of us for now.
Yeah.
Look, Eugene, just to finish off, we have a little segment at the end of our show called the Quick Six. So I ask a quick 6 questions, and you just answer them. But I've given yours a bit of a theme. So yours are about your fighters. So it's like personality things within the gym, and you just say who does what. Okay. All right.
I'll try my best.
Yeah.
I'll try my best.
First question, who talks the most in class?
Israel. Israel.
Yep.
Yeah, Israel.
He is chatty. Who
he was the naughty kid at school that was talking like when he wasn't meant to be talking, 100%.
who
Yeah.
trains the hardest, or who impresses you the most at training?
BJ Bland or Brad Radel.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought maybe Brad might be in that mix. Who makes you laugh the most, or who tells the most jokes?
Carlos Olberg is surprisingly, like cunningly funny, like subtly funny. He's very subtly funny, so and quite sarcastic. So I kind of like that's the kind of humor I like. So Carlos Olberg.
All right, hidden talent there. All right.
Yeah, that is. He's very cunning about it.
Who is late to class?
Israel. I hesitated there because I felt like he doesn't want people to let people know. He normally starts a camp a little, like being late a couple, and I have to yell at him a few times, and then he comes right.
Just keep him in line.
Yeah.
Who is willing to help clean up at the end of class?
Kaikara, France. Not Kaikara, France, but again, probably Carlos. Carlos and Shane Young are always the guys that kind of are very good members of the team, always put their hand up to do extra work.
Nice.
Yeah.
And finally, this isn't a question, it's a question more for you. When a potential fighter walks into your gym, what is the first piece of advice you'd like to give?
When a fighter comes in and says, I want to make a career of this, I ask them, the first question I ask them is, do you have a job? And if they don't have a job, I tell them to go and get a job. That's my first bit of advice to every fighter that comes in here, at the start of their career at least, and thinks that they can come in and do this full time. The fact is that you can't. We're not at that stage in the sport yet. You have to be able to work, and that is a lesson that you learn while you're working and training. That can't be taught. So, yeah, that's it.
Fair enough. Look, Eugene, I'm just going to say right now, thank you so much for your time, Eugene. I know I said at the top of the show, you're one of the busiest coaches around, so really do appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Rev. Thanks for everything.